Hello and welcome. Welcome to a special series of lectures on skill development for employability. I am Dr. Rajendra Vadnere, Director, School of Continuing Education, and we are going to see the various ways in which the skills can be developed. As you might recall that we have a lot of problem of skill gap in this country. That means there is a problem of employability. Not many employment opportunities are available, and when the employment opportunities are there, we don't find the real kind of a person. So we need to fill this kind of a skill gap. Now there are various kinds of issues in bridging this skill gap. So we are going to address to a specific kind of issue in this exercise, and this lecture series is about that venture in which we are talking about the generic skills. Let us see what is the importance of generic skill in bridging the skill gap. What happens that many a times you are properly skilled in a technical sense. That means suppose you are a plumber, you know how to do your job. Suppose you are a professional journalist, you know how to do your job as a professional journalist. Or if you are an agriculturalist, you know how to do the activities which are supposed to be done by an agricultural expert. But when it comes to working with the people, when it comes to various other kind of issues, you fail miserably, and that is why you are not employed. That means there is a difference between technical skill and generic skills. Technical skills are those which are essential for you to do the job which are required in that specific job roles. And there are certain other skills which are also required, which need not be same as the technical skills, but they are also required or essential or sometimes desirable to be able to be employed. So even if you have technical skill for a job, some generic skills are essential to become employable. Some examples of the generic skills are problem solving skills, creativity skills, and teamwork. Many a times you have problems in the life. You may have problems in the job scenario, you may have problems in the workplace, and there are certain generic skills which you can have in order to sort out those problems. And you can solve or you can have some solutions to the problem using very creative or innovative way. So that is another kind of skill area which we are going to talk about. And we are not very good in working as teams. So individually you are very good, but when it comes to working with the people, you may be failing very miserably. So these are the three areas on which we are going to focus in this specific course which is prescribed for the PhD program. We are going to learn three skill areas. One is the problem solving, second is the creativity, and third is teamwork. We are going to begin with the idea of teamwork. How we can do well with the team. So this first lecture is the beginning of that series on teamwork. A model for team working. We have to begin, and we have to be very focused, and we have to be very concrete. So we have chosen a model which has been initiated by Stephen Covey through his series of books which are on 7 habits or 8th habit. So we are taking as a concrete example one specific book which is called as 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. It gives the model for personal victory and social victories for the person. If you want to be a good person as a team, as a member of a team, you have to be also a good person as an individual. So first we are going to focus on your personal victory, and then we will move on to the social victory. So there are two aspects of the team development skill. One is the personal skill development and other is the social skill development, or first one we can call as personal victory and second we will call as the social victory. So we are going to start based on the specific book which we have recommended for this particular program, and we begin with certain general things. We begin with a foundation, and foundation has to be very broad and foundation has to be deep so that it can sustain the weight of the building. So keeping that in mind, we are going to talk in a very general manner. So what happens when people think about development of a skill in personality or in character building or as a team member building? So there are certain, the way in which people were working, the trainers were working were to focus on your personal traits or your personality kind of traits, and then there is also another school of thought which deals with the character traits. So there is some difference between this and the personal trait and the character trait or the secondary trait. Your singular character or you as a single person, there are certain personality issues. For example, the way in which you communicate, the way in which you manage your time, the way in which you conduct yourself, the way in which you dress yourself, attire yourself, and these kind of things. So these are little bit superficial kind of things, and these we call as the personality development kind of issues or personality development kind of programs. But they are secondary issues. What is more important is your character. So we should try to develop a good person by developing his character and not merely how he conducts himself, how he communicates himself, how he does things in a society. So our focus should be on how you are, what you are, how you know yourself, and then we will move on to how you are going to influence other people. So we say that there are two traits we can say. One is the primary trait and other is the secondary trait. The heading of this slide you might have noticed is power of paradigm. So what is the meaning of paradigm? Paradigm is the approach in which we see the things. It is the way the same thing can be seen by different people in different manner. As many times you have example of, a glass half filled. Some person says it is half full. Some other person says it is half empty. Both are same. Both are right. There is no difference between them. Both are the same, but at the same time both are not same. So saying same thing, looking at the same reality in different perspective leads to different schools of thoughts, different kinds of thinking, and this is what we call as paradigm. Paradigm is the approach to see things. For example, you take a map. You may have a map which is a scaled map, or sometimes there is a map which is not a scaled one but which serves the purpose. For example, suppose you want to tell your friend how to reach your home. You are going to draw something which may be straight lines here and straight line there, but really the road may not be a straight line. It may be little bit curved here and little bit curved over there, but it serves the purpose. It tells your friend how to reach your home, so it has served the purpose. So when you draw something on the paper, you say here is my home. So that is a part of the paper. It is not your home, but you say here is my home. There is a part of the paper which says this is the secondary school or this is a high school which is located near my house. That part of the paper is not the high school. It is a symbol. It is a kind of a correspondence which tells you that this is, if you go to the right, then you will find the high school, or from the high school, suppose you take left, then you will come to my house. So he understands it. So it is basically a representation of a reality. The house, your house is a reality, the high school is a reality, the road is a reality, the left and right turns, these are the reality, but you are mapping it on a piece of paper. So, paradigm is kind of a map. It is a kind of description which you take, and every map has its own limitation, it has its own importance, and it has to be seen in that particular perspective. So, paradigm is a way in which we approach a problem or we try to solve a problem. So, one way at looking at the things is that there is certain thing wrong about the people, the way people behave. For example, suppose I am teaching you. My approach may be that you do not know this and this thing, and I need to teach you, I need to enlighten you, I need to tell you how things are. So one way of looking at it is that you do not know many things and I need to teach you, I need to improve you. Similarly, suppose I do not agree with some of your ideas, I may think in this way that your ideas are flawed, your ideas are not correct, and I need to improve upon you. So this may be one way of looking at the things. Other way of looking at the same problem is your ideas are different than mine. Let us see whose ideas are better, whose ideas are going to give better solution, whose ideas are going to be more acceptable or going to reward more. So I am open about your ideas, you are open to mine, and let us sit together and see how things happen. So approaches may be different. This is what the paradigm is. So one of the paradigm in which people have been working was the paradigm of managing things in the optimal manner. For example, time management. One paradigm is that you try to cram as many things as possible in that specific time span. Another paradigm could be that you, whatever you do, you don't need to do everything in perfect manner, everything in the fastest possible manner, but you do things which are right for the purpose of the society, which are right for the development of your individual being, which are right for the long-term initiative or long-term development of the society, nation and the world. So doing things right is one paradigm, doing the right thing is another paradigm. So suppose you go to a place and suppose you want to find a specific location and you are using a map, and suppose the map is that of the same city, and suppose your paradigm says that I want to I will be doing things in a very planned manner, and at this particular time I am going to reach the railway station, and at this particular time I am going to take this cab, or at this particular time I am going to ride a specific vehicle and move to that particular location. But suppose the map which you are using as your guide is not for the same city, but it is for some other city, and if you are of the paradigm of fastest possible means, then you are going to reach to the wrong location in the fastest possible time. So this is, you have not achieved anything. So paradigm could be that of behavior, paradigm could be that of attitude, but what is more important is to use the right map. Suppose your paradigm is that of behavior, that you need to improve your behavior, then you will reach to the wrong location in a very fast manner, but it has not served your purpose. If suppose you have been trained in the attitude school of thoughts, that attitude is important, so don't mind if you are not reached to the location, but take it easy. If this is what you have been taught and this is what your attitude has been, then what will happen is you will reach to the wrong location, but you will not mind it, you will not feel very bad about it, you will not care, you will reach to some destination, or may not, you will say that okay, I have not gone to where I wanted to, but I don't mind it, it doesn't matter, it's all right, I'm happy about it, I don't care much about it. Both way, you have not served the purpose, you have not reached to the location where you wanted to. So the right attitude or right school of thought should be to use the right map. And this is what is these days the modern school of management and modern school of behavioral science is regarding leadership rather than management. They use the word leadership rather than management. It is about doing the right thing rather than doing things right. So this is the way we have been looking at the things, that we do not want to just improve our efficiency, we just don't want to improve our skills, but we want to do the, we want to utilize these facilities, we want to use these faculties to do the best possible things. So this is a paradigm shift. Suppose somebody says, what is this? This diagram which you are seeing, it is a sketch of a person. Can you see this picture and tell us, what kind of what is this image about? If you see this image, some of the people will say that this is a portrait of a old lady. This there is a she is she has covered her head in some cloth, and she is looking downwards, and we can see her lips, we can see her nose, and she looks very pathetic, and she doesn't look very nice, she looks very old, maybe ill. And the same picture, suppose you show it to some other person, they will say this is a image of a, this is a portrait, this is a picture of a young lady. We are not able to see her lips, we are seeing part of her nose, her eyelids, and we are seeing part of her chin, we are able to see her ear, and there is probably some chain which she is wearing, there is a fur coat which she is wearing, and we are seeing it from the backward side. So some of the people look at this image and say one kind of a thing, and some other people look at this image and say other kind of things. So who is right and who is wrong? Maybe both are right and both are wrong. It depends on how you look at the things. So this is the concept of paradigm shift. Suppose you change your perspective, you change your way of looking at it, you will see it as a old woman. If you change it to the first one, you see it as a young lady. So this is the concept of paradigm shift. So same thing can be seen by other people. Both are right in their own way. So there is not a single way of looking at the things. This is what we wanted to establish by this example, that there may be multiple way of looking at the things, and this is what the paradigm shift is all about. Every day sun rises and sun sets. Some people say the sun has risen and sun has set. This is the first way of looking at the things. That it is the sun which is moving upwards, which goes to the zenith and which comes down and sets. So this is the concept of geocentric universe, that earth is stationary and it is the sun which is rising and going down. So that is the concept which we began with the humankind began with. It is called as the geocentric universe. And then somebody said, if you see it in this particular manner, you have a lot of difficulties in explaining the way planets move. That is why it may not be the correct way of looking at the things. If you see it in the other way, that it is sun is stationary and earth is moving around itself, it is spinning as well as it is moving around the sun, then you can, and similar things are being done by planets and other things, and the comets and other, then you can, and there is a very plausible explanation, there is a very justified explanation why it is happening. This is happening because of the gravity of the sun and other things. So you have explained a lot of things, and you have moved from one way of looking at this thing. Same evidences are there. Sun comes up and sun goes down, but either you say that it is the sun which has gone up and gone down, or you say no, sun is there itself, but it is the earth which has spinning. So there was a paradigm shift. There was a very drastic way in which things changed when we said that it is sun was rising and sun was setting, and then we were saying that the earth is spinning. So there was a paradigm shift. Paradigm shift is more than just a scientific principle. It is the way in which we look at the things. When we say earth is stationary and we are at the center of the universe, that means we used to give a lot of emphasis on our own existence as human beings. All the religious scriptures, most of them, they say that earth has been created, or the entire universe has been created for the goodness of the people, goodness of the human being. It is created for the human being, and everything is to support the human beings. But when we look at the other way around, we are now saying that we are very small part of the universe. Our solar system, our planet, our cities, we as the individual human beings are nothing in comparison to the vastness of the universe. So there is a paradigm shift. There is a revolution in the way we were looking at the things. Similarly, when Darwin proposed the evolution, there was a totally drastic paradigm shift. Earlier we used to think that everything, all the organ or the animals are there, they were there right from the beginning, and they are still there, and they are going to be there till the end of the universe. But Darwin suggested that it evolves because of the genetic mutations, because of changes, natural selections and things like that he had proposed. And then we came to know that not all the animals were there right from the beginning. Some animals evolved afterwards, some animals were there right from the beginning, and some kept on evolving and kept on changing the way they used to hunt, the way they used to look, things like that. So there was a drastic change in the way we were seeing the things. Even though the evidences were the same, everything was the same, but the way we looked at the things, that mattered, that changed everything. Similarly, we can talk about Einstein's theory of relativity. We can think about democracy. Earlier there was kingdom, that there was a king whose son would be the next king, and the kingdom would go from one person to another based on the dynasty. Suddenly there was a change. We moved from kingdom from monarchy to democracy. So everything changes when you move from one way of looking at the things to another. Suppose you have your model is that of monarchy or that of the kingdom. That means the next person who will be the king, whose wishes would be accepted by the society, by the kingdom, is that person who is the son of the present king. That means you don't have any chance of becoming the king. But if you are in a democracy, everybody, if he performs well, if he has the wishes of the other fellow human being accepted by the people, then he also has the chance to rule his fellow citizens. So it changes everything in a very drastic manner. This is the concept of revolution. Revolution is the event when all the values changes in such a manner that every aspect of your life you need to test whether whatever you were doing yesterday, in the present scenario, I have to do it in the same way, or I have to rethink, remodel, or reinvent my way of looking at the things. So this is the concept of revolution. This is the concept of paradigm shift. So One paradigm is being is seeing. Whatever you see makes you what you are. And as I said, that the way you look at the things also has something to do with your own existence. Suppose you tell me to do something, or you tell me that this is the way reality is, and your model of reality doesn't suit my present way of conducting business, then I will be reluctant to accept your ideas. So it depends on my existence as a human being or my existence as a professional. Suppose I am a printer, and suppose the revolution comes in such a manner, suppose there are technical advances which makes the printing business out of business, printing as out of business, then it will be drastically affecting my ideology. So I will not be supporting those people who want to make advancements towards such a revolution or such a change in which my livelihood, my bread and butter would suffer. So I have two choices: either oppose them, it could be an artificial way of stopping the things, because no one can stop an idea whose time has come. And other solution could be change myself to suit to the new way of looking at the things. So I just wanted to share with you that sometimes it becomes difficult for anybody to convert a person whose existence or whose very existence may be affected by the new ideas. So we will come to these ideas again and again in this present series. The kind of paradigm which we are going to advocate in this series of lecture is that of principle-centered paradigm. There are certain principles which govern human behavior, and these principles should be accepted, approved, and brought into our daily life. So the principles are like principle of fairness. Whatever is true to me, whatever rules applies to me, same rules apply to you. There should not be different sets of rules for different sets of people. So this is the concept of fairness, that everything is equal for everybody. There is a principle of integrity. That means we are loyal to our cause. There is a principle of honesty. That means whatever I am saying, I should be doing. It shouldn't happen that I am saying something and my conduct is the other way around. Then there is a concept of dignity. There is a concept of service to the society, service to the nation. Then there is a principle of quality or excellence. Whatever we do, try to do in the best possible manner. This is a principle. There is a principle of potential and growth, that people have potential. You might not have done certain thing till today, but you have potential to do this thing in future, and we have to accept that people have potential, and since people have potential, they will grow. With this principle comes the principle of patience, that you have to be patient, you to accept that it is going to take some time for certain things to develop. For example, suppose a kid wakes up in the morning and sees some buds of flowers, and he is not happy because he wanted flowers, but they are just buds. So what he does is he plucks out some of the buds and he opens one by one. Maybe he has created a semblance of a flower, but they are not the flowers. So you have to tell the little boy, that little kid, to be patient, that you wait for some time and then the flower will bloom. Whatever buds are there, they will bloom into a flower. Then there is a principle of nurturance, that you have to nurture the feeling, you have to nurture the behavior in a small person, or in your fellow citizens. Then there is a principle of encouragement. You have to encourage people to do certain things in a specific manner. Now, these paradigms or these principles are not practices, they are not values. They are not something to do, something like, esoteric, some tantra, mantra, or things like that, which nobody will understand or which are very difficult to understand. These are natural things. The idea is, if you wait for sufficiently long, what would be the consequences? Are the consequences palatable to you? Are the consequences acceptable to you? Or are they not? This is the basic touchstone on which we have to judge whether a principle is an acceptable principle, or a certain practice or certain things are acceptable or not acceptable. You have to, again, I have given you an analogy of territory and map. The reality is like territory. Reality is like a place. For example, your house is the territory. The high school near to your house is a territory, and whatever you have depicted on the piece of paper is a map. So we have to be very clear about what the territory is and what is the map. Paradigms are something like a map, and reality is whatever you expect, whatever you see in your real place. Now, when we move from one level of working to another level of working, then we are seeing the things in a very different manner. So it is said that when you solve a problem, then you have to be at a different perspective than at the time when the problem was created. If you have the same mindset which developed the problem, you will not be able to solve the problem. So we have to see the problems, we have to see the reality in a different perspective and a different manner. So the principle centered approach is what we are going to take in this lecture series. This approach is principle centered and character based. It attempts to evolve you as a different human being, as a different being who is capable of solving the problem. Our approach is that of inside out. The concept is like this, that suppose I am not happy with the situation, I am not happy with the way my students are behaving, or my family members are behaving, or my kids are behaving, then what I do is I try to solve them. They are the problems and I'm trying to solve them. This is my conventional approach. But I do not have direct control over my fellow citizens, my fellow beings, my students, my kids, my family members. I only have control over myself. And even that could be a questionable thing. Do I really have the control over myself? If you ask yourself this question, you may not be always saying yes to everything. Suppose you are an addict. Suppose you have a bad habit which you want to give up. And if you ask you say that I'm going to give up this habit, and you try it and you're not successful. That means you do not have control over yourself. So we have to begin from the place from where you have the control. So you have to begin with yourself, because you do not have the control over others. What at the most you can do is you can control it in an artificial manner. Maybe you will stop the pocket money to your kid and say that, okay, if you don't do this, your pocket money will be stopped. If you do this, I will increase your pocket money. Things like that. This could be an artificial way of changing their behavior. It will be similar to the kid who is trying to open the buds of a flower and trying to make a bud into a flower. it is not going to be successful. It is an artificial exercise. So the best way to begin is to begin with yourself, and not only yourself, with your inner being, the very core of your personality. So you start from there and you change yourself, in such a manner that whatever you wanted to achieve would be achieved. So it is said by Marilyn Ferguson that no one can persuade others to change. Suppose you have certain idea, you have certain concepts, you have certain beliefs, and I suddenly say that no, this was old thing. This is, you have to give it up. Now you have been believing that particular things for years together, and you did not have any problems, you did not have any complaint, you do not have any problems with those concepts, and I'm suddenly saying you that don't think that this way, think in my way. Then would you agree with me? Just like that, you will argue, you will say things, and as long as possible you will try to oppose me. You suppose I am very superior to you in logical way of convincing people, and suppose you don't want to accept me, what you will do is you will close the gates of your intellectual thing. You will say that okay, today I don't have time, let us discuss it tomorrow. You will postpone it, or you will say okay, but you have not convinced yourself from the core of your heart. So it is very difficult for anybody to persuade anybody else with just a mere argument or mere this thing. Actually it should be, but it is not normally the case. The changes happens only from inside. It is something like an egg. It is very difficult to break an egg. Suppose you take an egg upside and on a so that the longer side is above the ground and it is perpendicular to the ground, and you try to break it with only force, it will never break. Even if you have a elephant try to break it, it will not break. You have to break it, but it is very easy to be broken from inside. The chicken which is there inside the egg, when the egg is matured, the chicken very easily it breaks that egg. So it is similar to this, is that you want to change, you have to change it from inside. It's a gate which opens from inside. So you have to first yourself, you have to agree to it, yourself have to accept the principles, and then only you will be able to induce other people to change themselves. Other principle which we are going to focus on is, when you want to change others, first you have to change yourself. That means private victory and personal and public victory. Private victory is your own victory. That means you have changed yourself to the person which you wanted to be. This is your personal victory or your private victory. And when you have once you have done that, then you can hope to change the society, you can hope to change others. If you are successful in changing others to your agenda of things, then you have acquired the public victory. So this is a principle. Just like unless you have sown a seed, you will not be able to harvest. Similarly, unless you have won yourself, you will not be able to win the other people. And in order to do this, what you have to do is you have to keep promises, you have to make commitments to yourself, and you have to honor those commitments to yourself. Once you have done that, then only you can make commitments to the other. One way of changing yourself, we are going to see it, is that you keep on making promises. For example, suppose you have some bad habit and you tell yourself that I am going to change this bad habit, and if you are successful, then you have achieved a personal victory. And then you will be able to tell others that look, I have changed myself, similarly you can also change. So beginning from ourself, beginning from your own inside self, and then moving on to the other people. So this is the concept which we wanted to elaborate. Now this movement or this series of lecture is about 7 habits or 8 habits. Now when we are talking about the habits, what is the habit which we are talking about? Now habit is, normally we say that whatever we do repeatedly, we call that as habit. For example, suppose some people have habit of so the habit may be a practice. So you may have a habit of worshipping before you begin your days, or you have a habit of taking tea early in the morning, or you may have an habit of taking tea every hour, or you may be having a habit of drinking a glass of water before you take your lunch. So these are practices which you do repeatedly. If you miss it, you feel something, you miss something. You are aware that you have missed something. So this is what normally called as the habit. And there is a very famous saying that what we are what we do repeatedly. Suppose I'm very conscious about my health and I do exercise on a daily basis, then my body will be strong enough and my physique would be strong enough and I will have less health problems. That means I am healthy. Why am I healthy? Not because of my genes, not because of anything else, but because of my practice, because of my habit of doing exercise in a regular manner, by eating a healthy food, by sleeping properly, and by keeping my thoughts in a very clear manner. These things lead to my health. So I am what I do repeatedly. So considering that, he has further said that excellence is a matter of habit. So if you want to excel in your life, you have to have the right kind of habits. But the way in which we are going to talk about habit in this series of lectures, we are not going to talk about the habit as practices, habits as something which you do in a repeated manner. Superficial things like brushing your teeth, superficial things like taking tea or drinking a glass of water or drinking a glass of milk or whatever before you go to sleep. Suppose you take a glass of milk. That kind of thing is not what habits are for this specific series of lectures. What we mean by habit is a style of thinking or behaving. Whenever you undertake an activity, what schools of thoughts go in your mind, that is what we call as habits. And in order to create an habit, you need to have 3 things. One is knowledge about the thing. Second, the skill which is needed to do the particular job. And third is the desire to do so. For example, suppose I want to have a good physique and I have learned that I need to have 3 things. Just as I've just now told you, that you have to exercise properly, you have to have a good healthy food, and you have to have good sound sleep. And in order to do this, I need to have some knowledge about what kind of exercise suits my body. Suppose my goal is to sustain myself on a long duration, what kind of exercise I should do. So this is a knowledge part. Then I should undertake training under some good person so that whatever I am doing in a repeated manner should lead to the right kind of a result. Suppose I take a training in yoga under a good teacher, then when I do it repeatedly, my muscles, my body will get used to it, and then I will be able to do the things as expected, and then I might achieve the result of having a good physique. But these two things are not sufficient. I should also have a very desperate urge to do things. If I don't have the urge, I will have knowledge. I might have acquired some skills if I go to the teacher, the master. But if I do not have the urge, maybe I will find some excuses of not doing the things. But if I have the urge as well as knowledge as well as the skill, then I have created the habit, the principle, the way in which I wanted to have. So, habits are the styles of thinking, styles of behaving. We are going to see the habits which we are going to see in this series of lectures. And it will explain you why I meant that, habits are styles of thinking. So these are the 7 habits. There is an 8th habit also, but we are going to talk about it in a little bit later stage. So first habit is be proactive. That means whatever you do, before you react to certain things, you check whether it fits in with your agenda of life, with your personal statement of life or not. And you undertake those activities, you initiate those activities which are going to lead to the objectives of your life. Your life may be having an objective that I want to be a reader, I want to be a good financial supervisor, maybe a good expert in the field of knowledge. So this is your personal agenda. Anything and everything which you undertake should fulfill that agenda. If you are doing that, then this is a habit. Now, this is not a practice like, chewing gum or, brushing your teeth or things like that. I'm not talking about the habit in this particular manner. It is the style of thinking. It's a style of functioning. It's a style of working. It's a basic paradigm of things. So be proactive is one of the habit. Second habit is begin with the end in mind. That is the habit of visualization. Begin with things, begin with the end in mind. That means it talks about the mind, it talks about the end, it talks about beginning. That means what is going to happen when I do something, what is it which is going to happen? You have to visualize it. You have to visualize the schools of thoughts, the chains of events which are going to take place after you have initialized your first process. So, keeping everything in mind, it is a habit of planning. So, in a way, it's a habit, but it is not a superficial habit like brushing your teeth or something like that. It is a style of working. It's a style of thinking. Third habit is put first thing first. Now, superficially it will look something like this, and whatever things has to follow after the other. So second thing you don't do it, first thing you do first, and then you do the second thing, and you do the third thing, like that. So this is a superficial interpretation of this sentence. But what it really means is, whenever you do things, do those things which are morally correct, which are right. Those things you do. Don't do those things which you probably don't need to do. So, whenever you do things, ask yourself whether it is the right thing to do, whether it is a correct thing to do, whether it is a necessary thing to do. And then you accordingly prioritize yourself in that particular manner. So, this is probably a habit of time management, but it is not merely time management, it is a habit of leadership. Fourth habit is, these three habits together take you from dependence to independence. We are going to come to it little bit later. After that, the fourth habit, fifth habit and sixth habit, they take you from independence to interdependence. Fourth habit is to think win-win. Suppose you have two parties, I and you, and suppose we are playing a game of chess or game of card or something like that. I win, you lose, or you win, I lose. But this paradigm, this way of looking at the things may not always be the correct and right ones. There may be situation in which you also win, I also win. You also lose and I also lose. So the first kind of scene in which when I win it necessarily means that you are losing, this kind of scenario is called as zero sum game. That means addition of who wins. Suppose whoever wins you give 1 marks and whoever loses you give 0 marks, then a plus b is always 1. So it is called, or rather suppose you 1 to the person who winning and -1 to the one who is losing, then it is a zero sum. Addition of the two is always 0. So these kind of scenarios are called zero sum games. But life is never or not always zero sum games. So many of times it may be win-win, it may be lose-lose, or it may be win-lose, it may be lose-win. So you have to think win-win, you have to think in such a manner that everybody gains something out of it. Everybody is happy. If you try to get that kind of a thing, then it would be a very ideal thing. So try to inculcate that habit in yourself. Try to inculcate this kind of style of thinking in yourself. Fifth habit is seek first to understand and then to be understood. That means first listen to what other people are saying, listen to the other person's point of view. Once you have listened to other person's point of view, understood, grasped, internalized, then you criticize this view, then you analyze this view, and then you put forward your views. If you have this habit, then you are not teaching. Suppose I teach you, that means I don't care what you think. I don't care what you have understood so far. What all matter is that I know everything and you may not be knowing everything. You may not be knowing anything. So I am transferring knowledge from my side to your side. But if I have this kind of a feeling that okay, so far you have learned this much. Tell me what you have learned. This you have learned. But according to my point of view, whatever you have learned, this way of telling the things are better than mine. Suppose I have this kind of openness in myself, and if I appreciate my student's point of view and I say okay, this is something which I have not thought, then probably it has done good to me as well as to my student. Then the student also gets boosted that okay, this is something I have done well. I should increase this way of thinking. It will boost his or her confidence, as well as it will be, we will be cooperative. We will be working on a cooperational kind of a model rather than merely transferring of the knowledge kind of a model. So this is a model, or this is a style of thinking, this is a habit which we should inculcate in ourselves, to seek first to understand, then be understood. Next habit is synergize. What we mean by synergize is adding our energies in such a manner that the total sum is more than the part. All these concepts we will be coming later on in a much detailed manner. Seventh habit is sharpen the saw. You will say that I don't understand what is the meaning of sharpen the saw. It is something like this, that I went to a place and where some person was sharpening, a carpenter was there, he was sharpening his saw, he was not doing anything at all. So I said, what you are doing? He said that, I am sharpening my saw. Why you don't have any work? He says that if the work comes, if my saw is sharpened, I will be able to do things in a much better manner without delay. So it is a habit of rejuvenation. It is a habit of keeping yourself updated every moment. So these are the 7 habits, and I just wanted to dispel your misconceptions if you had about the habit being a practice like brushing the teeth or drinking the milk or something like that. So it is basically much more than that. So in the previous slide, we saw 7 habits. They were modeled in such a manner. The 3 habits took you from dependent to independent, and another 3 took you from independent to interdependent. This is called as the stages in the maturity continuum. Continuum means something which is continuous. For example, there are certain things which take only the discrete values, and some variables take continuous value. So it is, this continuum is there from immaturity to maturity, from age of 0 to age of 100. So in this line, suppose you draw a line at the birth and end with death, then this line is the maturity continuum. In this continuum, you begin with age of 0, that means just when you were born, you were 100% dependent. Unless you are taken care, you would not live another day. You have to be fed, you have to be kept warm, you have to be stroken, you have to be dealt with in every possible manner. Your mother empathizes with you. She feels in the same way as you are, or she tries to feel the same way as you are. She tries to feel whether you are hungry. She tries to feel whether you are feeling cold. She tries to feel whether you have a stomach ache. She tries to feel the same way, identical way as you are, and when she does it, then only you survive. If she doesn't do that, you may or may not survive. So the first stage is that of dependent, and that stage is the stage of you. You take care of me. You have to feed me. You have to clothe me. You have to take care of my needs. So it is a paradigm of you. It is a stage of you. Then slowly and slowly, you start taking care of yourself. You start walking. You start talking. You start going to the school. You start developing. Once you do that, your dependence on your mother and your family becomes less and less. And then a stage comes when you are independent in financial manner, in emotional manner, in various kinds of manner, and you don't really require your family to take care of you. So this is the stage of I. You say, I can do it, I do it, I did it, I have a degree, I have a salary, I have a bank account. So it becomes an I paradigm, an I stage. Then comes, if you are happy, probably many of the people die with this independent kind of a thing. They have only the I kind of thing, and they don't develop further. But once you have reached this stage, you also feel that okay, you have, just like winning yourself, you go to another, you say that okay, I want to achieve furthermore. I want to do well in my business. I want to have a friend circle which will help me whenever I'm in a field and in a crisis. So I should develop a network of people. I should develop a network of empire. I should develop business. I should do, I have to interact with other people. Maybe my financial advisor, maybe my chartered accountant, maybe my lawyer, maybe my clients. So you understand subconsciously that there is a need to be interdependent. Interdependence means you are dependent on the others and others are dependent on you. So this is interdependence. Dependent means you are dependent on the others. Independent means you are not dependent on the others. Interdependence means you are dependent on the others and others are dependent on you. This paradigm is that of we. We will do this. We have to do this. We have to take care of this business. We should together work on this particular project. So this is the paradigm of we. And in the team spirit, we have to work and so that you and I can get more. And since we have we are talking about the team spirit as our focus for this series of lectures, it is this that is important, that you have to move from dependent to independent and from independent to interdependent. So these habits, first three habits take you from dependent to independent, and other three takes you from independent to interdependent, and the last habit, the seventh habit, the habit of sharpening the saw, is the habit of renewal. Now a new habit also has been added, and that habit is the habit of greatness. The habit is marked like this: find your voice and help others find theirs. You have something in you. A fire is there, which is there in you, which is a unique one. And that fire you may not be aware of. So eighth habit is the habit or the way of thinking is that of finding what is unique with you, what gifts you have which is unique to you, and what way your uniqueness will contribute to the goodness of the society, to the goodness of other people, to the goodness of the nation and the world. So this habit has been added later on, but we will move from one habit to the other. Now here we were talking about the effectiveness. The title of the book which I was referring to says 7 habits of highly effective people. It doesn't say 7 habits of highly successful people. It says effective people. So what is the meaning of effectiveness? You may be successful, but you may not be effective. You may be successful in the manner that on one walk of life you have excelled. There are certain movie stars who people are very crazy about, who earn a lot of money, who have their names coming on page 3 daily in the newspapers. But when it comes to their family life, it may be miserable. So should we call them as effective? In a general way, in a holistic manner, they may not be effective. So this habit which we are talking about is the habit of, these habits are for the effectiveness. And what we mean by effective is to be in harmony with the nature. Because what we are talking about, what we are going to talk about, is something based on the principles which are drawn from the nature. So if you take these habits, all these habits have their roots in the nature. So you have to move with the nature, not against it. Now one fable is there, Aesop's fable, which is called as the fable of golden goose. You might have all heard about it in different manner perhaps. It is something like this, that there is one farmer was there who had a goose or a hen which used to give on a daily basis one golden egg. The egg was pure gold. So he used to sell it on a daily basis and he became very rich. So one day, he grew very impatient and thought that suppose I just kill the hen and I take all the eggs from its stomach, I will be very rich. So instead of selling every day, why not take everything in a single go? And he just killed that hen and he found nothing inside. So he lost the golden goose and also lost all the eggs. This story, even though it may look very childish, is very important. It has various interpretations which are very important from global perspective. So we distinguish between two concepts, that of product and production capacity. The egg which the farmer used to get on a daily basis is the product. He has to feed the goose in order to keep the goose alive. He has to keep the goose in the good health so that on a daily basis he should be able to get the golden egg. So golden egg is the product. And the goose itself is the product, the capacity to produce. Because unless you have goose, you will not have the golden egg. So there is a balance which we have to maintain between product and production capacity. Suppose all around the world we have so many oil rigs. Daily lot of production is there. Suppose someday somebody thinks that let us increase the production and let us dry all the wells in a fastest possible manner. What will happen? There will be lot of, it will be something like killing the goose, and it happens in many of the places. We destroy the forests in order to build the city. So we forget about the balance between product and production capacity. It is in the book, it is called as the P by PC balance. That means we have to keep in mind that we have to balance between the product as well as the production capacity. Suppose you lose the balance, what will happen? Suppose you think that okay, let us decrease the production of the oil drastically so that in long run the whatever are the stock of the oil on the earth will last for a very long time. What will happen is that the industries will not grow. There will be a lot of people who will not have their job, and a lot of people will be rendered unemployed. So if you drastically take one side of role or one side of approach, then it is going to decrease. Suppose we say that let us decrease the agricultural product so that there will be more and more forests. Let us plant all kinds of forest. And when we are talking about the forest, we are talking about the biodiversity. That means there are many plants which are not useful, or we do not find any useful means or any use of those plants. So those plants should also be there. Suppose you take that kind of a drastic approach, there will be very less production of edible farm output, and then people will starve. So that kind of approach will also be drastic and may not be useful. So if you focus too much on the product, you will ruin the health. And if you focus too much on the production capacity, suppose we start, we think that, okay, let us increase the harvest production. Let us, wherever the forests are there, we will have the farms. So that also in long run, it is not going to be useful. Suppose somebody, the example is that of eternal student. Suppose I keep on learning. When I learn, and then whatever I have learned, I put to the practice and make money. This is simply the model of education. Suppose I keep on learning that okay, if I learn till graduation, I will learn 1,000 rupees a month. If I take another degree, postgraduate degree, I will earn 2,000 a month. Suppose I take another postgraduate degree, I will earn 3,000 a month. This way, suppose I keep on working, I will never quit learning, and I will never be able to use the knowledge which I have gained. Suppose you have a vehicle, and if I don't service it, then the vehicle will not be working for long time. But if you keep on servicing and not use it, even that is also foolish and not proper. So we have to keep in mind the balance between P and PC, the product and product capacity. And this is what effectiveness is. Effectiveness is keeping in mind that we have to, this is the principle of the nature, that we don't extract too much from the nature, we have to extract just right amount. The first habit is the habit of proactiveness. Before we go to this particular habit, let us wonder one thing, that there are certain gifts which only probably human beings have. There are 4 gifts which only the human beings have. One gift is the ability to be self-aware. You can think about your thoughts. You can criticize, you can analyze, you can ponder about your own thoughts. You can ponder about yourself. You can see yourself as if you are a third person. This way of objectively looking at ourselves is probably very unique to the human being. And this is one of the gifts, this is one of the strengths which we as each of human being possess. Another gift is the gift of imagination. You can visualize things. You can create reality in your mind. You can plan things. What an architect does is he puts something on the paper. This is where your living room will be. This is where your kitchen will be. This is where your stairs would be. This is your bedroom. This is your children's room. This is your entertainment area. This and that. So he puts everything in the paper, and you start visualizing. In the eye of your mind, you can see everything as if it is happening in front of you. So this is the gift of imagination, to be able to see things which are going to happen in the future. You can also visualize how your actions are going to lead to various reactions. Whatever you are doing, how it is going to lead to various consequences. So those things, even though you have not taken your first step, you are able to visualize things. For example, suppose you are playing a chess. You have to visualize 5 steps ahead of yourself. Some great people or the grandmasters, they think 15 moves ahead of it. That suppose I have played this move, my opponent's best move would be this, and to that my best move would be that, and after that his best move would be this. And before, most of the time, before their king has been captured, they surrender. They think that this is not going to be a winnable situation, so we quit. So they have this kind of vision, and this capacity is there with each and every one of us, and we are aware that we have this capacity, the capacity to imagine things. Sometimes we use the word realization. I realized something. When we say realize, that I have realized the problem which we are facing, what we really mean is we realize it. That means we make it real. I am seeing as if it is happening in the real sense. So imagination is a kind of realization in a different sense. Then we have a power of conscience. Conscience means to be aware of right and wrong. You are aware that this is something which is right, this is something which is wrong. Now this is something which we cannot explain, but through the practice and through the teachings of our generations and generations, anecdotes and stories which we have read from generation to generation, we know that in long run this way of looking at the things may not be justified. This act may not be justified. this is the right act because it is going to in a long term, this is going to lead to a good society, and this is not a right act because in the long run this is going to lead to a disaster. The fourth endowment which we have been given is the independent will. Everybody has the ability to act. Whatever you have, you can always act upon. You have ability to act upon. You have an independent will. You can do whatever you want to. You may not be doing it because you know the consequences are not good enough, but you still have the ability to do things. So this is the gift of independent will. We will be coming to these 4 gifts again and again throughout this series of lecture. Now let us come to the first habit of being proactive. What we mean by proactive is something like this, that there is a stimulus and there is a response. For example, suppose somebody hits somebody else. A hits B by a rock. He throws a rock at B and B gets hurt. So this is a stimulus for B. Now suppose you are B, then you have a number of responses which you can have. You can hit it back. You can you can pick another stone and hurt A again. This will be the response. So there is a stimulus and there is a response. Suppose you are given a notice by your bank that because of your because since you have failed to pay the EMI, you have become defaulter. This is a stimulus. Your response may be you will pay the money in the bank if you have the money, or you may borrow the money from somebody else and pay it to the bank, or you may do a lot of things like that. So this is everything, every day, every moment we have stimulus and responses going on. Whatever I am teaching you, I am trying to tell you, this is the stimulus and it is evoking responses in your mind. So every time, every moment, stimuli are being hurled at everybody and responses occur in response to the stimulus. So a very good quotation is there, which has been quoted by the book, that between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now, what is the meaning of this sentence or these sentences? That suppose some stimulus is there and you have to respond to that stimulus. That means, for example, suppose somebody is hit in somebody else's cheek. He strikes and somebody, the A strikes B. Now the response is there is a gap after B has been struck. He has a space. In that space, his mind will work and he will respond. He will either respond by striking back B or rather A. B will strike back A, or B will apologize, or B will run away, or B will cry, or B will do so many other things. There may be n number of ways in which B will respond to the action of A. Now, this is a space that A has done something and B has to do something in response to A's action. This is the space. This is what we call as the space. And this space is extremely important. In this space, B has to think about his action to the response. And many a times it has happened in the history of the world that, for example, one country has launched a missile, nuclear missile, on country B, and it takes, let's say, 1 hour for missile to reach the destination, and B has 1 hour to respond. Now what will B do? Either he will contact the country A and talk, persuade, do things, or it will start war with against A, things like that. So this 1 hour was the crucial for the development of the country, for the development of the society. In this hour lies the history. So this space between stimulus and response is the one in which the histories are created. In this space lies our power to choose. It doesn't happen instantaneously. It doesn't happen that the stimulus is there and response comes automatically and without notice or without control. You have the control over the response, and this control lies our growth and our freedom, because you have the freedom to choose the response. You are not slave of your behavior. You are not slave of your destiny. You are the creator of the destiny, and you create the destiny by offering the right kind of response to the stimulus. So to be proactive means to choose the response based on your principle, your vision, your creativity, your self-awareness. So the 4 gifts which we were talking about, they are instrumental in choosing your response. So once the action is taken against you and you have to respond, you would use your creativity. You will create the vision about what will happen if I do option 1, option 2, option 3, option 4. Suppose I take either of any of these options, what will be the chain of reaction I will be starting, and whether this chain of reaction promotes my agenda of life, my objective of the life, or it doesn't promote. So based on your agenda for the life, you will choose this best possible response. So this is to be proactive. For example, suppose I want to be an expert in financial management, and suppose something happened and I have to respond. Suppose some bad experience came. Suppose I am cheated and I want to be a financial expert. I am myself am cheated. What would be my response? My response would be A, I cannot be a financial expert anymore. I'm cheated. If I'm cheated, how can I teach other people? How can, nobody, people will say this person is a flop. So this chain of thought is one. Another chain of thought could be that, okay, this is just something which I have to learn. What is there for me to learn from this situation? Think in that particular manner, and you have the process of learning, and this probably may lead me to become a better financial manager. And you can say that, okay, I will, if I tackle this in a better manner, probably in future I will be giving this an example as how I overcame this particular situation, and this is an opportunity for me to beat this particular situation. So my responses could be number of manner, and I have to choose the best possible response based on my vision statement for myself or my agenda for myself. Proactive is opposite to reactive. If I am reactive, it is my behavioral pattern, this is my psychology to suppose my psychology is being defeatist, that I get defeated. I have got defeated, nothing will happen to me, I go to depression. Suppose this is the way I am programmed, then my failure will lead to a depression, and it will be chaos for me, because I am programmed like that. So you have to program yourself. the reaction would be that of defeatism. But there is a knee-jerk reaction that you stuck something. Suppose you are stuck on the knee, your knee is feels a jerk automatically without your conscious effort. This is called as a knee-jerk reaction. But when you are inculcating the habit of being proactive, you are by conscious effort trying not to react the way you have been programmed till today. You are thinking that I am going to respond in the manner which best suits my vision statement. So, proactive is opposite to reactive in two manners. One is it goes against the program which you have accepted unconsciously for yourself. It is to take a program which you have programmed yourself as a matter of habit. Another way in which it is opposite to reactive is, reaction means action has taken place and you are reacting. Okay? And opposite to that would be, it is not somebody else who is attacking you or who is subjecting you to the response. You become the stimulus. Okay? So you start making things. You take command. Rather than being commanded, you be the commander of your life. So that way it is opposite to reactive. Again, coming to response, stimulus and response. When we say that you have the choice of responses, that means you have ability to choose. You have to tell yourself that whatever circumstances I am in is not the end of the life. It is, I still have a number of choices which I can take. I have a number of decisions which I can make, and I have a responsibility. That means ability to respond. So responsibility is equal to responsibility. That means ability to respond. So when you are proactive, you are not victim of the circumstances or the actions of the others, but you are master of your own. Eleanor Roosevelt had famously said that no one can hurt you without your consent. It doesn't mean that somebody wants to hit you, then he will take your permission in writing, or he will ask you, can I hit you? And then you will say, okay, you cannot hit me. It is not like that. You don't get hurt when somebody hits you. You get hurt when you feel the hurt. And when you feel the hurt, you can feel the hurt only when you tell yourself that you are hurt. This is the basic and inner concept. This is basically the spirit of this statement. No one can hurt you, no one can insult you unless you feel insulted. There is a very famous anecdote of Lord Buddha, that somebody poured some waste on Lord Buddha, and he just walked like that without any reactions. So his disciples said that he has insulted you. Then Lord Buddha said that if he gives something and if I don't take it, then it remains with me. It doesn't reach me. So suppose somebody abuses you, and if you do not take the abuse, then the abuse has not reached you. So the concept is that unless you feel, you allow others to insult you, you will not be insulted. If you keep this in mind, it will be a very liberating kind of an experience. Mahatma Gandhi has said that they cannot take our self-respect unless we give it to them. Your self-respect is your property. Unless you give it to others, others will not have your self-respect. So it is a very important and very eliminating, a very elevating kind of this thing. Reactive versus proactive. You can choose your languages. A person who is reactive says, I must. That means I am compelled to do this. I have been attacked, I must attack back. There is no other way. He doesn't see any other opportunity. He doesn't see any other choices. When you don't see any choices, you are reactive. Suppose you are proactive, you will say, I prefer to attack, because this, in long run, this is my choice. I have seen all the choices, I have visualized all the possibilities, and I decide I prefer to take this particular option. If only this thing were like that, I would have been like that. If only I was graduate, I would become like that. I would become a clerk. But because I am not a graduate, therefore I could not become this thing. So I am a victim of the circumstances. So you pity yourself that it is not me who is to be blamed, it is others who are to be blamed. They made me do this, they made me do that, they made me write my resignation. I had the choice to write a resignation, I did it. This is the way a proactive person would have said, I choose to do this. This is how he says it. But a person who is reactive, he says, they made me do it. I am the victim of others. If I had this, I would have done that. He will say, a proactive person, on the other hand, will say, I can be like that. I can be this. I can be that. There is a way, there is a scope for me to be somebody else. In order to explain the concepts which we have already learned so far, we will give some examples or some anecdotes. Stephen Covey has given in his book one anecdote that he was giving a seminar and he was talking about all these anecdotes or all these principles which we have just narrated about you being in charge of yourself. You cannot be hurt unless you give permission to others to get hurt. So things like that. He was telling everything. And then he saw on the face of one participant a very great enthusiasm. She had received a sort of a bliss from this particular seminar. So he wondered what is happening. So in the coffee break, that lady, that participant, she came to him and he asked, what you saw something in my lecture, what was it? She said that I am a nurse in a hospital and there is a patient which is very abusive. The patient is very bad mannered. She keeps on abusing us, all the nurses, nobody wants to work for her, something like that. And I used to feel very bad about it, because that patient used to abuse me day in and day out, and I was very pathetic about it. I was feeling very bad about it, and I used to get so upset that I used to become upset with my husband and with my children, and even my family life was getting ruined. But when I heard you, I felt liberated. I felt that I have a choice to make. I have a choice which should be according to my agenda. Suppose that nurse's agenda is to serve the society, to serve the patients to the best of her ability. Her choice would be to ignore the insults which are hurled at her, to ignore whatever abuses that nurse is giving to her. That nurse can say that my agenda is to serve the best of my ability to all the patients, including this patient, and accordingly I will do it. So this is increasing my virtue. The insults are making me more stubborn to such kind of insults, and I will be able to take more pains in future, and I will continue to work like this. This could be one way of looking at the things. So she can choose her response not to feel bad about it. And if she doesn't feel bad about it, she will not create new situation at home which will make her life further bad. This is one example which you can think about in a real situations. There is another example which was given is that one student comes to Kavi and he is teaching, Stephen Covey is teaching a lecture, and a student says that, I don't want to, I would not be able to take your next lecture, I would not be able to attend to your next lecture because I have a tennis practice which I have to take, and I will not be able to attend to your lecture. He said, Stephen Covey asked him, you cannot or you choose not to? He said, I cannot take your lecture, I cannot attend your lecture. He said, why? What will happen if you don't take my lecture or you don't attend to my lecture? He says that, if I don't attend to your lecture, then I would be getting less marks in the examination. Okay, and what would happen if you don't go to the tennis practice? Okay, in that case I will not be able to play for the university. I will be left out from the team. So what do you think I should do? So he says, the choice is yours. You have to choose. So he has two choices. One choice leading to his expulsion from the university's tennis team. Another option will be miss the lecture, miss the opportunity to learn for the course which he has undertaken, and maybe get less grade in the examination. So he has two choices. He visualizes himself in these two choices, and then he accordingly takes the right decision, the decision which he prefers. So you have to visualize the options. Take option A, what will happen? Option B, what will happen? Third example is something like this, that Stephen Covey had given a seminar and he tells about the proactivity, how you have the choices and things like that, and all kind of things. Then during the break, one person comes to him and says that, whatever you say is correct, I agree with you, but it doesn't apply to me. He says, why it doesn't apply to you? He says that my family life has become it has taken a very deep low. It is on the verge of collapse. My marriage is on the verge of collapse. Why is it that way? He says that, because I don't feel love for my wife. He says, then what is to be done? He says, Stephen Covey tells this particular gentleman is love her. He says, you don't see. Then the patient, the participant says, you're not understood what I'm saying. I don't feel love for her. How can I love her? At the end of it, Covey says that love is a verb. It is something to be done. It is not a product. Love as a feeling is the product of this action. So when you say love is a verb, you are being proactive. When you are saying love as a feeling, then you are reactive. All the romantic stories which we see in the movies, they just say that, it happens, it just happens. It doesn't happen. You have to make it happen. I will give you an example of this particular anecdote, is that you have some people in your life, may not be your spouse, it may be your kid, it may be your father, it may be your brother. You know that they have lots of shortcomings and you still care for them. So you love not because they are good people, you love them because you know that they are not good people and still you care for them. If you love someone who are great people, you admire them because they are great people, then this is not purely a love in that particular sense. Love means knowing that your spouse has so many shortcomings, still you love, care, and worry and take care of that person. This is the real love. When see, if you have virtues, you have so many people flocking around you. Suppose I have a lot of money and I am willing to spend on all kind of luxuries. I will find lots of friends, so-called friends with me. But if I don't have money and still some people care for me, that means they really love me, they really care for me. So this is the true meaning of love. So you don't have to wait for circumstances to create this kind of feeling that it will happen one day. It is not that way. You have to program yourself to make it happen. So you may be having your kid who doesn't listen to you. You may be having some brother, father, or somebody else in your family, your friend, who might have bothered you a lot, in a lot of occasions, but in still you don't cut away your cords with them. You still maintain the relationships because you care, and that is the real test of love or being loved. Let us move to another concept. The concept is about circle of concern. Here you are seeing a glass, a cup of tea, and it is placed in a dish, and you can see really basically we wanted to show you 2 or 3 circles. One circle is the circle of concern and other is the circle of influence. Suppose you look around yourself and you see so many things, so many areas, and you feel concerned about some of the areas and you don't feel concerned about some of the areas. So those activities, those things, those events which concerns you, which you feel concerned about, those are the ones which are there in the plate, including the inner cup. So the circle of concern is the bigger concern, and whatever is outside the plate on the table is something which you don't care about. So let us not worry about those things. And then within the circle of concern, there are certain parts in which you can take decisions, you can influence, you can change things. So we have a wide range of concerns, but not all of them fall into our circle of influence. So our certain circle of influence are those areas, those parts in which we can make change. We have the capacity, we have the ability, we can do some things. So in a short, I will be calling as SCOI, circle of influence, and COC for circle of concern. So what happens is, if you are proactive, you are increasing the circle of influence. When you keep on, suppose there is something which concerns you and you don't take any actions about it. Suppose your surrounding to you, you have so many localities in which if you want to, you can stop some bad practices, but you choose not to stop those bad practices. What happens is, that means you have not exercised your will to do it, and your circle of influence has not increased. Suppose you can tell other people that don't do these things, this is not something good, and they will listen to you, then you have increased your circle of influence, because you have connected with those people, they have listened to you, you have included, you have added to the benefit of the society, you have done good to the society, and you have increased your your circle of influence. Suppose you take a reactive approach. You think this way, that I will not be able to do anything, it is not worth doing it, let us not do it. Then you have lost that opportunity. Your circle of influence has become less. So sometimes what happens, that the diagram which I had shown you, this diagram, here you are seeing the circle of concern which is larger than the circle of influence. But in some cases it may happen, you become so powerful that the gap between circle of influence and circle of concern becomes so less that it is hardly there. That means whatever you have so much of power that you can influence everything that concerns you. It can happen with the people with position, wealth, etc., and their concern circle of influence becomes greater than their circle of concern. That they can do more that they can feel concerned about. There are three kinds of control. One is the direct control, other is indirect control, third is no control. Direct control is something which is there with you, your own behavior. Now, how to deal with that is the subject matter of habit 1, 2 and 3. That is something to do with your personal victory, your private victory. Indirect controls are those which you can subject to the other people. That is something which is not in your hand alone, which is in the hand of other people. So there you have indirect control, and you can do that by achieving the habit 4, 5 and 6. That means when you have attained the interdependence, then you will be able to have the indirect control, that is the control over others. And then in our diagram we had shown you something which lies outside the cup, or rather the plate, that is outside the table, that is something on which you have hardly any control. So there are certain things about which you do not have control. For example, something which has happened in the past, you don't have any control. You cannot change something which has happened in the past. Or you may have certain things in which, for example, suppose somebody has a cancer and there is no remedy, there is no, nothing can be done about it, then that cancer is something which is a situation which you have to accept. So where you have direct control, you have to use your habit 1, 2, 3 and change it. That way you will increase your circle of influence. Wherever you have indirect control, try to do it using habit 4, 5 and 6, and that way you can increase your control. And whenever there is no control, you have to accept it. And acceptance itself is an exercise. There is a prayer which Alcoholic Anonymous has a book of prayer in which this prayer is there. It says, God, give me the courage to change things which ought to be changed, serenity to accept things which cannot be changed, and wisdom to know the difference. So direct or indirect control, wherever you have direct or indirect control, try to change it. So you ask for the courage to do it and accept those situations which cannot be changed, and where from the difference comes, it comes from your wisdom. That is your conscience which tells you where the difference lies. Expanding the control of influence. We can expand the control of influence by making and keeping commitments. We make promises and keep it. We set goals and try to get it. We try to be a light, not a judge. We try to be a model, not a critic. We try to be a part of the solution, not that of a problem. And at the end, we should understand that we are responsible for your effectiveness, our happiness, and our situations. So, this is all for the time being. We will meet again in the next session. Till then, thank you so much.